Patrick, it seems strange saying that because I do call you Paddy. Paddy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Yes.
How did you get into the fenestration industry?
My start in the fenestration industry was came a bit later, I suppose. It's obviously still as a young person, but I actually worked in pubs and hospitality since I was 18, really, officially. When I moved to university, I got a job washing dishes. I told a couple of fibs to get a job on a bar, and she said, no chance, back in the kitchen washing pots on a Saturday and Sunday. And I stuck with it. I was at university in Leeds doing music technology. I was there for. I moved in 2009. I think I came home in 2014. But during that time, I dropped out university, told some fibs, didn't tell my mum and dad for quite a while, which was obviously a bit of a shock to them when I came home and sort of broke the news to them. But I remember dropping out from university, and remember going to my general manager at the time, a lady called Kerry in Leeds, and said, look, I've not told anyone, I've not told my housemates, I've not told family and friends and things like that, especially not mum and dad. I need to be doing something other than, cooking pub teas and things like that. So she gave me an opportunity. She was like, right, yeah, absolutely. Don't waste your time here. If you've dropped out of uni, then let's get you trained up. So I worked as a kitchen manager for a pub company in Leeds for a couple of years first. And after about a year or so, I had this appetite to go like, well, this is great. I've got everything in mind. I was in charge of sort of health and safety, training, recruitment, margin control, and all these different things that go into managing a kitchen. And by no means am I a trained chef. It was, we were nicknamed microwave technicians at the time for the pub, for the food we were doing. But I think it was a good, sort of foray into, this is margin, this is what impacts it, and this is how you control it, and things like that. And obviously about processes and things like that. So after about a year or so, I was kind of an appetite for more. And during my review, an opportunity came up for a position called area chef. And basically what the area chef did was ran their own kitchen, but a couple of days a month, you would go out into the other sort of sister businesses on your area. So I used to travel around West Yorkshire, turning up doing my best Gordon Ramsay impression, sort of walk in, order loads of food, no one know who it was, order a couple of dishes off the menu, sort of review it all, take some notes. You would have some sort of information about the general performance of the business before you go in there, and then you would sort of put your chef jacket on and sort of show your ID and go to the kitchen and go, right, what was that about, or well done, or whatever it may be. After about doing that for a year or so, another review came up, speaking to the general manager, and a comment she said, well, if you want to make money in this business, you're not going to do it in these roles. You have to become a general manager. You have to get your own pub. So an opportunity came up to come back to Liverpool. Obviously, I told my mum and dad by this stage that I dropped out of university. To do a similar role, but to move from kitchen management into being a deputy manager of a pub in Liverpool. So moved to work with a lady in Liverpool on near Matthew Street. And about a year into that, doing really well sort of on the sort of wider sort of stock control and training things as a deputy manager for quite a big business, but always with the view of at one stage getting my own pub. A year down the line comes up, and there was another brewery that were involved then and said, well, we have this role where basically you travel around different businesses as a designate general manager. So basically you would be appointed by the area, I suppose, to go and work and help out in a particular pub. And I went to a pub in Formby, which is just north of Liverpool, called the Freshfield. This, welcome to, it was real ale, it was better food, it was a much more of a sort of formal setting to what I was used to. And I really enjoyed that, really enjoyed the place. It wasn't just about volume, it was about the quality and the sort of the experience of being in that pub. It's in quite an affluent area. And a couple of months into that, the general manager who had the pub, had the pub for a long time, said, well, I'm leaving now ahead of my agreed timeline. So I kind of stuck my hand in the air and said, well, I'll stay. I feel like I've got a good grip. I know I'm not experienced as these guys have been, but I think I could make a go of it. So that was 2015, up to 2020. There was a bit of moving around in between, but I was, I enjoyed it. It was really good. Obviously, a bit more in depth, bigger team, bigger responsibilities and things like that across the whole business. And it sort of got to the end of 2020. Sasha, my partner, and I had moved in upstairs. We live upstairs above the pub, which was great, but, not great for sort of privacy, and having members of staff knocking on your door to say, "Oh, can I have this?" or "So and so's not coming." I knew that was not where I wanted to sort of remain. And I had a friend who'd done a similar thing. He'd been in hospitality for a long time, but through a company, a graduate recruitment company, went into a different field altogether, taking that experience he had, and made it was a good move. You could see that from how happy he was, the changing sort of lifestyle. So I went to the same graduate recruitment company, had a sort of assessment stage, sort of had to do a pitch, had to do a sort of group interview stage and things like that. And one of the first couple of jobs that was put to me then after passing that stage was a company in Manchester called Regalead, specialist sort of decorative components for windows, doors, and glass, with some added, ultimately there's somebody who's not involved in the windows, doors, and glass industry kind of half explaining what Regalead do. So I thought, sounds really interesting. It's different. I'll go meet them. So I had my first interview with Paul Edwards and Tony Malik, who was here at the time as well. And the one thing that really struck me was, this is very interesting, because I could see from the get-go that there's not a lot of people doing what Regalead does. It's quite a unique offering in that sense. There's a lot of a very wide range of sort of customer demographics. So I thought, yeah, it's quite cool. This is, everything's a bit different. And that was what I enjoyed in the pub industry. Everything was different every day, new challenges, but with that core sort of sensibility about you are working for a business, and this is about going out and developing business as well. So I had a second stage interview then with Guy and with Darren. And it just felt like a really, really good fit. So I accepted the job. I put my notice in with the brewery right before Christmas of 2019, said I'll do Christmas into the new year, and then I'm going to be starting a new job. So I joined Regalead, and the first couple of months, I think it was 8 or 10 weeks of, right, Paddy, welcome to Windows, Doors, and Glass. And and it was funny, because it was like peeking behind the curtain going, I remember seeing a PVC panel door in somebody's factory, and they were beading it into the sash, and I was like, no, that's how that goes together. Because it's background, isn't it? It's windows and doors. I didn't have my own home, always lived with mum and dad, and and lived in different places, but never had to pay attention to the responsibilities of making a home secure, I suppose. And I was just blown away by all these sort of strange nuances about decorative glass as well, kind of really trying to get my head around going, yeah, well, I've seen a church window, but what do you mean you can mimic that in a different way? And I think that the one thing that struck me in those first sort of 8 to 10 weeks is just how fascinating the industry was, because there are all these nuances to it, and especially with what Regalead's involved in. So, so that sort of got to the end of the 8 weeks, and I remember going up to Edinburgh for a friend's stag do, which would have been around St. Patrick's Day in March of 2020, obviously March. And there was a customer that I'd been speaking to up in Glasgow. So I said to Paul, well, he wants me to go and see him. Why don't I stay up? Come up. Yeah, no problem, whatever. So I stayed up after the stag do on the Monday, travelled over to Glasgow to go and meet this customer. I remember on the drive home, Paul Edwards ringing me going, look, mate, world's a very strange place at the moment. This is everything's going a little bit crazy. We don't know what's going to happen. I think at the time, this must have been the Monday, and I think on the Thursday we were due the first sort of addressing the nation from Boris Johnson. And Paul said, look, don't know what's going on. Just need to keep you in the loop that it's, nobody knows what's going on. I was like, right, okay, no problem. And then rang my dad afterwards, and I was going, I think maybe moving jobs at this time was not the best idea. To moving jobs is one thing, but moving industries as well. And I was thinking, oh Lord. But obviously that was sort of right prior to lockdown, going to lockdown, and I was Sasha and I had actually moved in with mum and dad because we were saving for a house. We thought, well, we can't move from the pub flat into a new home. We'll have to just get the last sort of scrapes of money together, and then we'll do it from more stable base, because obviously there's no real deadline on getting things out and stuff. I remember thinking, yeah, it'll be fine. So I was the only one sort of fully on furlough in my household. Mum and dad were still working. My younger sister was still working, and Sasha was a dental nurse. She was still going to work every day as well. So I kind of sat there and went, right, I sort of get windows sort of get glass, sort of get doors. Obviously, still quite fresh to it all. But paint, it was like really sort of, it's like black magic. Just could not understand it. Couldn't get my head around it. So I thought, well, I'm just gonna have to sit at home and read and learn, because in my opinion, the sensible decision to be was like maybe recruiting somebody who's no real experience in the industry for this job was not the best decision at this time. But yeah, that was my sort of how I came to Regalead, really, and again, it's just that constant fascination about what we do. Um, in all of the divisions that we have in the business is just, you know, what's kept me going, what's kept me intrigued. And I'm a kind of person as well who, you know, there's a joke in my family that I've turned into a bit of a plane spotter and a bit of a plane nerd, sort of out of spite, because I've got a fascination in it. And my sisters go, "You nerd," and I go, "Well, you know, it's the A380. Do you know about this? Do you know about this? You know, it's in my sort of personality to really dig deep on things and get a real solid understanding. So I think Regalead for me was the business to do that, because again, every day is different, really unique and creative opportunities that we have here as well. So yeah,
Wow, that's quite a journey so far.
yeah.
So, a few questions. So, going back to, how old were you when you started doing the inspections? I'm fascinated by that.
So that would have been 2013. So I think I was 21 or 22.
So, I'm picturing big chain, you going around, youngster, having that kind of look. I mean, you look young now. I don't know actually
Thank
know.
you.
Yeah, I
Appreciate
haven't
it.
quite worked out your age. But so what was the reaction, especially if you were coming in and giving them, bad
Yeah.
feedback?
You know, my manager and my area manager at the time were very frank and said, "Well, you know, look, you obviously know your job very well, but the next stage in your development is interacting with and looking for improvement with people who have been doing a lot longer than you and kind of doing it a lot longer than you have. But you know, this is where you test your resolve. Really, is can you stick to your guns on what you believe is right and what you can obviously demonstrate to us as right, but can you convince other people of that?" And my first, I won't mention the place name. I've told you the story separately. I won't mention the place name, but I was sent to a pub somewhere in West Yorkshire anyway, that was not doing a lot of food, and the GP percentage was sort of like through the floor. The sort of costs were going through the roof. Area manager said, "Look, it's a good place for you to go and start, because it's not, you know, a huge cash impact, but percentage wise, it's really bad. Can you go and sort of, you know, do you think go and have a go over there unannounced, order some food, see what's going on, but spend some time in the kitchen with the area with the kitchen manager. Go this day, because we know, you know, he'll be there, and it'll be the best of both of your time." So I remember going in, and I'd not met the chap before, but I'd heard the stories. He'd been in the army for sort of 23, 24 years, working in sort of catering and things like that as well. And you couldn't fault his kitchen. His kitchen was absolutely spotless. Nothing was out of place.
Like that.
I remember coming in, had my iron chef whites on, had my name embossed on the side, Patrick McGrory, area chef coach. I remember stood across the kitchen, introduced myself, and he went, "What the fuck are you going to teach me about doing food? I've been doing this longer than you've been alive." And I just said, "Look, I've been asked by the people I work for to come in, just have a chat, have a conversation, and just see what's going on." And he was quite dismissive, but fair enough. But at the end of the day, he went, "Well, do you know what? I'm not going to be able to kick him out, because ultimately I'll get in trouble for it as well." So we just having a chat. And I remember it was just after lunchtime rush, and a ticket comes on. It was when pulled pork was going sort of haywire in the market, probably about 10, 12 years ago. There's all sort of this American barbecue coming in. And I see him making this pulled pork mix, and it was basically pulled pork, but you added the sauce separately. And I just looked, and I kind of looked at the ticket, and I went, one ciabatta pulled pork, and I was looking at what he was making. I was like, I said, "How much pulled pork have you got in that sandwich?" And he really snapped at me, 500 grams. That's what the recipe card said. I said, "Sorry, mate." I said, "The recipe card actually says 500 grams of pulled pork mix. Have you checked your batch recipes?" "No." I said, "Just look at your batch recipes." I don't want to give away pub secrets here, but basically it was 250 grams of meat and 250 grams of barbecue sauce. And one of the things that was coming through on the stock sheet was hundreds of pounds every week missing of this pulled pork product.
Right.
And he looked at me and he went, "Oh, is that why I'm missing loads of pulled pork off my stock?" I went, "Yeah." And he went, "I'm really sorry for the way I spoke to you earlier on. I've never questioned that. In all of the problems I've been having, I just didn't even question that. I didn't, I've not checked the recipe." And I said, "Look, that's, even if that's all that we get from today, I'm not here to tell you how to cook anything, but there's just an observation for you." And it was funny then, because then he turned around and looked at me and went, you know, um, chips?" I went, "Yeah." And he went, that's frozen weight, isn't it?" And I went, "Yeah, why?" And he went, "Yeah, that'll explain all the chip losses as well, I think." I went, "Right, why?" And he went, "I've been trying to weigh out it when they're cooked, and a frozen chip is about, sort of 6 times heavier than a cooked chip." And he just had his head in his hands and he was like, I had no right to speak to you the way I did earlier on. I do apologize." And it was funny because then after that, we just had it sort of unlocked this real
Yeah.
good relationship where then he'd go, and he was a lot older than I am and he's a lot more experienced than I am. Just these little things that, again, because I'm quite anal and picky about the nuances of things, going, "Oh, well, actually, there's a technicality in your pulled pork formulation there. This is that." Um, so yeah, I'm glad I had that experience, sort of early on from someone older, more experienced than me coming in and going, "Don't you effing dare tell me what to do." To, within a short period of time, turn around to go, "Ah, thanks for that. You've you've really made a difference there." So that, yeah, that was certainly stepping into a more experienced environment. It was something that was quite formative, I suppose.
Which is very similar to the fenestration industry. If you really think about, people have been doing it for a long time, and systems play a massive part in it. So, did you, from the pub days, then did you have, how important was systems? Because of course, with that scale of business, you rely on systems heavily
Yeah.
to go into it. So, were you sort of there as a problem solver all round?
Yeah, so I mean, I mentioned earlier on about, obviously being in lockdown, this sort of dark cloud hanging over my head of whether I'd be hanging around too long because of the, the state of the, the economy at the time, let's call it, in the market. And as I read more and more into paint, and I was literally sitting at home reading tech data sheets, reading instruction manuals, watching YouTube videos, just trying to absorb this knowledge into me. I very quickly started to see, oh, a paint shop is no different to one of these pub kitchens. You've got loads of different components that all go together, but the people who are writing these recipes and recipes, formulas, are not doing it because that's the best way a salad's going to look, or that's the best way you can prepare something. It's because at some stage, one person has got to do that 50 times in a lunch rush. And it's about, yes, okay, you can piece together a salad in 100 different ways, but the reason why we do it this way is because it's quicker for the individual, it's easier to prep, and it's the most repeatable, consistent, and that, carries on into paint as well, which is where I've kind of found my product speciality. Is there are very clear instructions, but there are different ways to do it. But those different ways to do it that are kind of, different interpretations of I suppose, different interpretations of how a gun works or how compressed air works or whatever it may be. If you just return to basics, you start to gather all these benefits back of saving time, reducing your wastage, and overall having a better product in the end. We have so I always go back to telling pub stories, but if I recruited the chef and I go to him, right, it's fish and chips, it's £12. That's how you do your batter. That's how you do your chips. That's your mushy peas. That's your garnish. The chef goes, no, 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 no. You want to do this, start doing this with your batter. You want to do this. You want to grill your lemon. You want to do your tart sauce this way. Do this with your mushy peas. And you go, well, it's £12 fish and chips. There is an expectation that this has to be repeatable and consistent. My fear is your way is going to complicate things. No, 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 it'll be fine. 10 minutes into lunchtime, all falls apart. All falls apart. But, the lad who's maybe been working, washing dishes or doing bits of prep or whatever it is in the kitchen and wants to progress, and you kind of go to him, these are the way we do things. There are different ways of doing it, but this is the way we do it in our business. Stick to these and you won't have a problem. And that guy who's not an experienced chef can be trained as a good quality, consistent cook because he's sticking with the process, that sort of defined process. And again, it goes into paint spraying, and we have a lot of conversations now with the training center as well, is that I think there is a temptation sometimes to double down on mistakes. Things start going wrong, so you start really it's very rare that you see people go back to the very beginning and go, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to stop, put the gun down, I'm going to clean it, and I'm just going to go back to the basics of pressure, sort of gun settings, and sort of and technique as well. And that's something that's transferred across, I think, quite naturally. Is that this is a system designed to work, but ultimately you've got to stick with the system. You've got to understand the system, and always sort of revert back to basics. And I find that is what yields the best results. And they're the paint shops as well that have got the best performance out of them as well.
So again, I'm going back to the pub days, but so when mistakes like that happened, did it always benefit the customer, like getting extra pork? But is a good
Yeah, I
thing.
mean, and that's the interesting thing. You would meet people kind of going, yeah, but now they'll come back because they're getting great portions, great value. You kind of have to have that argument. Well, the value is set at the fact that they're paying, 12 quid for 2 plates of fish and chips or something during the week. That's the value that's been set. As long as it's hot, consistent, and served in a timely manner, that's what they're coming back for. So what happens when you leave or you're off and it's another person who doesn't, I don't know, put mince in the mushy peas, add more batter, use soda water instead of water in the batter, or all these different variables, then they're going to go, well, that's not what I had last time. Or that the sandwich is, sort of 4 inches tall instead of 8 inches tall. They're going to go, oh, well, now I don't know what to expect. There's a sort of, that, and I suppose that's the example of the, what can fall down when we're not sort of reverting to type as well. And again, I suppose, more food is better. In fact, there was a funny story. So when I was trained to be a deputy manager, it's all right. I'm going to better explain that. So that's always the benefit of the customer, but I suppose if you translate that into the window, door, or paint,
You're a business. You need to make money.
yeah, we've costed that specific amount, and we have to stick to that. And okay, if you can achieve that finish, but it's taking you twice as much paint, there's no real value in it. If we revert to type, go back to basics, and follow the instructions, we can get that quality and that consistency without using twice as much paint. And the story I was going to move on to was when I was trained to be a deputy manager, there was I was sent to hold a pub, basically management hold, for a holiday. So went in, handed over the cash and the stock, had to go and lock the flat because it was making sure the building's secure and whatnot, and now everything's now trading essentially in my name, as far as the pub was concerned. I remember then sorting all that out, going down, and there was a sort of a regular crowd of about 20 regulars, and they were older guys in a student area, who'd come in a couple of pints during the afternoon, and then they'd maybe come back in the evening. We were going down onto the bar, and one of the oh, you must be the new fella. Yeah, nice to meet you. I said hello to everybody, and they went, oh, we'll do us 2 John Smiths. Go down, get the glasses, get the John Smith glass. Start pouring this pint. I'm going, it's a funny looking glass. Serve it to him, and do 2 pints, and I go down and look on the shelf and get the glasses back. And it was an odd looking glass. It was a tulip glass, but it had a line for the pint. Most glasses are used in the UK are a pint to brim, but these are pint to line glasses. And it's from an old method of pouring beer, basically, where you press the button twice, dispensed half a pint each time. So you had to give a bigger head because you couldn't change the way you pour it. Anyway, I was like, all right, okay. And the area manager had said to me, do us a favour, there's a problem on the John Smith. They sell absolutely gallons of the stuff every day. They should be hitting their margins. They should be hitting their yield calculations. They're not, and something's not right there. Just have a look into it. Right, so ring the area manager, said, I found you John Smith's issue. They're all pint to line glasses. No, well, don't worry, I've gotten rid of them. But anyway, go back into the bar. I'm pulling all these glasses off the bars, and all the regulars are going, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing with those glasses? I went, well, getting rid of them because they're the wrong glasses. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. And I said, well, you're getting like 10% more in all of your pints. I said, it can't. Oh, bloody, you've ruined it. We've been laughing about this for years. And I was like, well, I'm really sorry, but unfortunately, they've got to go. And you know what? They've had the benefit from it and stuff. And it's just funny that, that sort of awareness, that sort of, those guys have used those glasses for years, months or years or whatever, and never really noticed the difference. They've just always got the telling off going, yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. And it's just that extra set of eyes coming in and going, yeah, sorry, that's my observation and it's got to stop. But it's, again, going back to my personality of trying to get to the bottom of things and sort of system driven, really trying to understand the nitty gritty and all the sort of the nuances of it as well. That's, I think, my what has helped me, specialize in paints and in coatings as well, because it's a really, really interesting subject that's got lots of variables in there. And I think if you're on there day to day in the same place every day, these habits can start to slide a little bit. And I think that's why we've had the success with the training centre as well. I do apologise and go, if you feel I'm getting a little bit too excited about atomizing air pressure and the way an annular ring works on a gun, okay, you can stop me if you understand what's going on. I said, but this is how I am. And that's when we then go and troubleshoot, and people asking for help and people who may not even be using our products. We've talked in the past about a rising tide lifting all ships. It's sort of, I want people to do it properly, not sort of come in there going, oh, well, my paint you can use a lot less of, and use that opportunity to train. It's about demonstrating that value of going, okay, yes, we do sell paint, but actually we also want more people to use paint. So I want you to be confident and competent in what you're doing. And, if we want to talk about paint as well, then that's great. But ultimately, the proper way of doing things is what excites us as a business as well.
So, have you got your personal license then?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you, weirdly,
no, it's not with me because I've got a very hungover photo.
I've got a personal license.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, never in a pub though. No, I know. Not many people do. But so were you technically, were you a landlord of the pub when you took over, or was it a different name?
So a long time ago, landlord was it was a title in law as well. But
Right.
when it was before, before the premises, was the I can't even name the legislation that governs sort of licensed premises and things like that. And it used to be you had a landlord. By the time I got round to it, it was a designated premises supervisor,
Yes.
which is not as exciting. You don't get your black plaque above the pub or anything like that. But what you did get is a poster behind the bar saying, we the brewery nominate Patrick McGrory as the designated premises supervisor.
DPS.
But I'm not. Yeah, never really got the landlord title. But I'm still referred to as, by certain people by the landlord.
But and also I'm sort of thinking the reason why I asked that question is that there must be some stories. I'm also picturing Liverpool. Tell me about a footballer in.
Yes, so the pub was called the Freshfield in Liverpool, and it's quite a famous pub. I mentioned earlier on it was all real ale driven, and that was something again that I'd never really dealt with, but it was what the pub was famous for, so I had to get up to speed quickly. And we had 14 on all the time, and we were quite well known for it with camera and things like that. But shortly after I took over full time as the general manager, it was when Brendan Rodgers got sacked from Liverpool. I am a Liverpool fan as well. Brendan Rodgers got sacked from Liverpool, and I'd heard stories about Brendan coming into the pub because he lived around the corner. Never saw him. He'd been in when I'd been off work and things like that, but never saw him. And I remember the morning or two after Jurgen Klopp was appointed, I knew everyone in that village because everyone drank in the pub and everyone recognised me, blah, blah, blah. I remember opening the doors one morning going, I don't recognise him and I don't recognise that dog. And I remember turning around, opening the doors, turning around, and my assistant manager saying to me, and he's an Evertonian, he said, that's Jurgen Klopp. I thought, let's go and find out, shall we? So I nipped over the road. I said, excuse me, I said, you Jurgen Klopp? And he went, yeah. I said, oh, well, I'm Paddy. I'm the landlord of the Freshfield. Right. I just want to come over and introduce myself. You should come in. And he said, oh, yes, Stephen Gerrard's already told us that we should come in and we can bring the dog. Because basically he'd moved into his house and whatnot. And yeah, since then, Jurgen and his wife and the dog would come in with family members and friends and things every couple of weeks. Which was great. It was he was a real nice guy, and it was funny because in that setting, no one, Kenny Dalglish has been in there from time to time. Stephen Gerrard was in there frequently. Jurgen Klopp's obviously started going in there, and there's a few other people throughout the years. No one turned to sort of bat an eyelid at it. It was just like, yeah, right, plays for Liverpool, manages Liverpool, whatever. It's in here all the time, and it was a nice environment because loads of stories about. Having a drink with them or whatever it may be, and he was just sort of one of the regular crowd, which was really nice. And I've got some lovely photos of my when my goddaughter was born, we bought her a Liverpool shirt with the name on it. So I've got two nice photos, me and Jürgen with this Liverpool shirt, and me and Stephen with the Liverpool shirt as well.
Oh,
They're
nice.
nice like memories and keepsakes as well for when she gets a little bit older and remembers. But her granddad's a Liverpool fan. They live in a different part of the country, but yeah, we've got it locked in anyway.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I'm glad I asked now.
Yeah.
What was the other thing about? Have you ever been in a footballer's house? I don't know.
I can't tell that story. I don't. Not on
Seth is going to
Spotify.
watch it as well. So you're trying to mate with an assistant. Mate, that's a great story, though, isn't it?
No, yeah.
Watching Stephen Joe over at his house.
No, it was Jürgen Klopp.
Oh,
yeah.
oh, no,
yeah.
no,
He was on the
Jürgen.
television. I was on the sofa with a cup of coffee, stroking the dog. Not that way.
So going back to present day, what's your job look like from a Regalead point of view? Because obviously Regalead covers quite a few different areas now. We've got urban bar, colour,
Yeah.
engineered doors are now coming in. Where do you sort of sit in all of that?
So yeah, I have my own area to deal with, to interact with on a daily basis, where I'm out then prospecting business as well. But my product speciality is then coatings as well. So again, because I had that, sort of couple of months at home furlough, terrified I was going to get the.
You are the colour expert.
Yeah. That's where I've
spray.
come into it. Yeah. So paint application, paint. So any interactions with business where maybe, obviously all the sales team can talk about our products, performance, and the service we can provide. But when it gets down to the nitty gritty, maybe in helping people make these sort of assessments on, is the equipment they've got right? Is there anything they can do differently to improve the sort of the number of doors being painted a day? General training inquiries as well. As well as hosting people at the training centre as well. So we've had loads of customers come through recently doing the GQA qualification, which we've talked about in the previous podcast. Just general sort of training days, because we do the formal one, but we also do more of an informal one designed for managers and supervisors as well. So I have a lot of crossover with other people's areas, let's call it, just to make sure that, when it gets down to the nitty gritty in terms of paint and application, the technicalities of it, is that we've got a real sort of comprehensive dialogue with our customers about how it works, what we can offer to improve their practices in-house as well. So yeah, it's very, very, very varied, on a day-to-day basis, but paint forms a lot of it. I've just come back from Glass Tech as well in Dusseldorf. Last week, we were with one of our machinery partners, Dinamichi, who make sandblasters and automatic spray lines for glass. And that was a real eye-opener, being at an international show like that. And that's something I really look forward to developing as well, is that there is a lot of people. I think it's interesting. I think we've obviously always had export customers on Colour Spray Original for painting glass. We've done all this work for the window and door industry around training and things like that as well. But through being a Glass Tech, you go, wow, there is a skills gap overseas as well. These people have their own businesses, they're painting glass, but it's funny because there is that distrust around paint because they've bought it, they've bought the material in, they've kind of guessed on the equipment, and their view is, well, paint doesn't work. Oh, I don't like doing paint because it doesn't work. And you kind of go, wow, well, no, it absolutely does. We wouldn't make it if it didn't work. But there is obviously, I'm sure I'd like to fly to Madagascar, to South America, to South Africa, to all over the world to train people to spray paint. But, it's about better communication, I think, with people understanding systems, understanding the chemistry. Because I think now, because I do, obviously, I'll be 5 years in January, I do still see myself as sort of newer to the industry as well and to the whole processes. But I think I take for granted sometimes that I've gone a little bit beyond the pale in terms of my understanding, to a point where I could bore anybody about the technicalities of paint and paint application. But obviously, it's very valuable knowledge, and I think the benefits there to be taken. And yeah, I'm just very, very, very passionate about paint.
Well, also, you mentioned the skills gap there. So coming into the fenestration industry, you've sort of proven there's a route, even though you started on a completely different journey.
Yeah, so it's funny because I think, obviously, I took some guidance from a friend who had moved out of hospitality, worked for a long time. He's a really good friend. He actually went into teaching, but now he's sales for, sort of big touring acts that come to the UK and Europe.
Right.
He's now selling them the logistics, and he gets to travel all over Europe, seeing these bands and interact with them, on the tour buses and things like that, which is a cool avenue he's
Why did he
taking.
give up being a teacher for that?
Yeah, and he what was it now? And it's interesting because I think what I've spoken a bit about today is just having conversations about paint and things like that, and it's difficult, I think, especially in such a technical or maybe not niche market, but a technical market, is sort of having this conversation and not sounding like you're just reading off a data sheet going, well, our paint will do this and we'll do this and we'll do this. And I think that hospitality background of ultimately, making conversations with people you don't know and building relationships with people you don't know, and getting to understand, and again, drawing those parallels with the pub. There was a term that a former chief exec used to use, that we don't have customers, we have guests, because customers spend money, but guests spend time, and that's really stuck with me as well.
Yeah.
I've been trying to think how you sort of transfer that into this industry. Is that, well, actually, they do spend money on our products, but actually, through using those products, it's a gamble. We demonstrate and we talk to people about the longevity and the warranty of the product and things like that. There is an ongoing, I'm not going to call it gamble, because we've demonstrated the performance of the products, but there is certainly that reassurance of going, no, if you feel things aren't working the way they should be, if something doesn't look right, then pick the phone up. I'll come and have a look and have a very frank conversation. I don't want to embarrass anybody or sort of panic at anybody, but to make sure that you've got a good understanding of the paint you're applying, not just you, or the people who are applying the paint, but your managers, your supervisors, and the other people in the business as well.
No, I think that's good, because I think, like you say, with the industry the way it is, people are always looking for avenues to not just make money, but they just want to make things more efficient. And sometimes if they're spraying in house, that's a great way of doing it, and they've got full control again. But they need someone like you to come in and say, "This is, tweak
Yeah.
this, get this right," and guide it. Just like anything, when you're learning to drive, you need an instructor. They teach you how to drive.
Yeah.
Then you start doing it without even thinking about it. But
think-
it takes time and experience, and
I
you can help
think,
with that.
Paul and I joke that the better we do our jobs in terms of advising people with paint, the less paint we sell.
Yeah.
I won't name the customer, but I had an experience where I was in talking with the customer about glass and the range and things like that for doors. And one of the purchase managers said, "Oh, those orders for paint, because we'd had an issue with QC that we were fixing." She said, "Don't send me 3 now. I only need 1." And I was like, "Oh, but have you had cancellations from this?" No. We just need the 1 now. And I was thinking, oh, and basically what it boiled down to was, I'd not really spent much time with them on paint, and there was basically over consuming paint. And I had something in the back of my mind was thinking that, oh, well, yeah, actually, there's the balance between paint and glass doesn't seem quite right. And I was thinking, I wonder why they use so much paint. And I discovered why it was, and I had to put a stop to it then and there on the day, because I was like, oh, hang on a minute, that I didn't realize you were doing that. And this is going back a couple of years when maybe we've not really gone down the training route as far at that point. And it was kind of like, oh, right, okay, no, let's stop here now. I get, we can't just magic equipment out of thin air, but this is what you need. This, and what you need. We can get it installed within a week or 2, but you cannot go down that road of carrying on to use that volume of paint per door, because it's unsustainable, and it's not fair on me. It's not fair of me to sit there and go,
Yeah.
using 3 times the amount of paint, or whatever the amount was. The right thing to do, even though it results in reduced revenue, is to make sure people are using the products properly, because, I wouldn't want to, find out from a customer, well, we've left there because we have to use 1.2 litres with you, but they only need 300 mil. I would never be on this, because it's quite embarrassing. It's dishonest. I think if you know what's going on, you've not done anything about it. It's quite dishonest, and I won't sort of stand for it, I suppose, is the best way to describe it. It's again, I keep saying it, but a rising tide lifts the whole ship. So it's I keep saying it in different variations, but I do keep saying it.
Well,
Is that it's kind of saying I want people to trust paint more, and if I have to demonstrate that, but by making savings on their existing product, that I understand what I'm talking about and can promote those savings as efficiencies, it's building trust, and I think that is the greatest quality, I think, between, especially for a salesperson interacting with many, many different businesses on a day-to-day business thing. Honesty is certainly the best quality you could probably have.
Nice. I like that. I kind of just want to ruin that nice moment by a question saying, do you deal with alcohol more now you're in a fenestration industry or when you were a landlord?
Well, only when we're talking about Manhattan glass. Yeah, no, it's we go to the pigs events and they're really good fun. But we laugh because when I had the pub, I don't know what you call it, my tolerance was much higher, and I seem to have stepped out the pub game, and I've lost that tolerance now. So even I'm, 2 or 3 pints going, I need to go and have a lie down. So, but there's the social element of the industry is great. We do pigs. Obviously, we have the fit show when it's on. We've just been to Dusseldorf with a Glass Tech. We're interacting with it was interesting interacting with a lot of people I've never met but I know of.
Yeah.
We've spoken on the phone but never met face to face, and it's nice to build that personal bond as well. I drive a lot more now. My commute used to be sort of out the front door and down a set of stairs to the office. Now it's a lot more driving.
Yeah, so it's good that the alcohol's dropped. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
so it's good for you.
I've still got a passion for it. I mean, like I said about the real ale, I really like real ale, but I'm the worst person to drink it with because I'm going, I could do it slightly better. Oh, did you see this? This is good. Well, I think you'll find that this is grease on the glass. But yeah.
Well, that is quite a journey, Paddy. 3 questions.
Okay.
Is there a low point that sticks out for you?
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier on when I went up to Edinburgh for that stag do and stayed a day to do some work in Glasgow and see a customer, and that drive home after Paul rang just to say, look mate, crazy times, we don't know what's coming around the corner, this is uncharted territory for everyone, and I'm just we've just been honest, we don't know what's happening, but just be aware that something's got to happen, whatever that is. And I remember ringing my dad afterwards going, I think I'm going to get the sack in the morning, because and again I've said before, I wouldn't blame anyone for that decision because it was utterly terrifying at the time. I understand the impact of that. So yeah, I'd say that was the time where I thought I'd had all this sort of like this great couple of weeks and months kind of going, wow, this is all really fascinating. I've got loads to learn and lots to work on. To then sort of going, oh, this might all come to an abrupt end. And you think back to March 2020 going, and then what's next? What's around the corner? So I think that was probably the low point that really sort of, that was really like, oh, it's all going to come to an end now. But yeah, the next day, so the next day after that low point though, was we had to come into the office to come collect phones, laptops, monitors and things like that in case we needed to work from home, depending on what the guidance would be. I remember I was shared an office with Paul Edwards at the time, sat opposite Paul, and he says, and sorry, Darren, who's our joint MD, comes in and he sticks his head around the door and went, Paddy, can you come and see me in the other room when you're ready? I was like, oh, jeez, here we go. So I was going, yeah. So I go into the office next door, and he goes, shut the door behind you. And I go, I sit down, like knowing what was coming, basically. And he spins his monitor around and goes, which colour do you want for your company car? and at that time, I was like, oh, geez, right, okay, good. Well, obviously, it's not as doom as gloom as I thought it would be. So yeah, that was a low point, which was quickly sort of rectified, I suppose. But yeah, that was I think honestly, I've done, it was quite a big difference. I think there was part of me that wanted to prove that I could do something different as well after being in hospitality for so long. But I was having so much fun learning and seeing what all of these different people did, from window and door fabricators to insulated glass manufacturers as well. It was just so fascinating. I was enjoying doing it, and I think that genuine interest obviously gives you a bit of a competitive edge, I suppose, as well. So yeah, that was probably my low point. That I was going to miss out on all this full time.
Well, and also for anyone that was thinking it, what colour card did you go for?
It would have been grey. But yeah, we didn't go for it in the end anyway, because it seemed once we knew what was going, it was going to be home working for a long time. I stuck with my own car because it seemed pointless.
Sensible. Flip side, is there a high point that sticks out for you?
Yeah, and I think it's come quite recently. we've spoken quite a lot about the training centre in Manchester, the Colour Spray Training Centre, and I've been involved with that from the beginning. For for our manufacturing customers to kind of go, how great would it be to have this environment where you could come in, see the processes, and even if you're doing it already, you're already set up and doing it, be able to come and see the equipment that we have, work with different partners, to be able to go, look at all we can do to show you a better way of doing things, or these are the efficiencies you can find. And I think then that paired with getting the GQA approval or accreditation for the course that we've designed as well, to see the light bulb moment in everyone's head when you explain something quite critical. There's a good bit we do during the course. We kind of list all the things that could possibly go wrong, and we leave that on a board in the corner. Then when we go through some of the technicalities and nuances and mechanics of a spray gun, and you start aligning them, and these light bulbs are going off, and people going, oh yeah. And it's kind of like, yes, I've got you. I'm maybe not as interested in painting as I am on that level, but I've kind of captured your intrigue now. And that's and to see that interest and that fascination and that realization is a really very satisfying. So for me, that would probably be my sort of a collective high moment in my career.
I like it.
Yeah.
Last question, sometimes the hardest.
Yeah.
If you had to spend 2 weeks on a desert island with someone from the fenestration world, who would it be?
So I remembered this question when I was on the drive-in this morning, and I panicked because I thought, I don't know. And obviously I feel like you're always going to upset someone if you if you choose somebody and not somebody else. And I know that's been said before. I did check, but I couldn't take you. I don't think you count as the podcast host is available for one, because I think I've on a personal, we've done a lot of video content through Nozzle and Glazing side over the last couple of years, and I've really enjoyed it.
We would do well on Ireland.
Yeah,
I agree.
absolutely. So, and we always have a good laugh, and the content is they're always really fun days when we do them. But so I was racking my brains about who I would, and I think it's fair to say, because on a personal level, not just a professional level, we get on incredibly well. And I'm not taking the cheat way out here, but it would be Paul Edwards, who's our director of sales at Regalead. Since day one, I was under Paul's guidance to be very much, and it was great, because when you speak to Paul and you realize how long he's been in the industry as well, and the stage at which he started as well, that's very much you're just as fascinated about this as you were on day one, and I'm just as fascinated as you are. And I think that that sort of intrigue and fascination crosses over into a lot of things. Airplanes were both, I get a weekly text message or WhatsApp from Paul when he's walking the dog past the end of the Manchester airport, and the Emirates A380 goes over, and we're going, oh, get a video, great. We've been playing golf days when we've been playing near the airport, and goes, Paddy, look, I know you're about to take your shot, mate, but look what's coming over. So yeah, we've got a really good personal relationship. We've got a really good working relationship, which is good. Paul, I obviously come to Paul with a lot of sort of queries and questions, and sort of, they're not just questions about what should do with this, what should do. They're more like conceptual questions as well. We have like longer discussions about things, which I really enjoy. It helps me understand things better as well, which is great. But then, now with the product specialty, Paul comes to me with things, with sort of queries and questions, and sort of help him better understand it, I suppose. And I think it's a really good working relationship. I really enjoy working for Paul, as I do the rest of the Regalead team as well. I think we've got a really, really good group of individuals who all work together, very passionate about what we do. But yeah, I think 2 weeks talking about the airplanes. Well, I hope we don't see any airplanes, because I think if they didn't come down and get us or send someone back, I'd be rather like, I don't like airplanes anymore. They just ignore you. We've got a penchant for nice beers, but Paul doesn't like the same beers I do all the time. But I know what's good, and I can point things in the right direction. But we've travelled around a lot. We've spent many an hour in the car driving up and down, long form discussions and whatnot. So yeah, I think I would be 2 weeks on a desert island would be Paul Edwards for me.
Brilliant. Paddy, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome back. Open invitation.
Yeah,
so we can see how the colour spray master gets on. But thank you.
You're welcome.